The First and Second Chechen Wars were bloody conflicts, where separatist forces managed to inflict heavy losses on larger Russian forces. They significantly impacted 21st century warfare. For example, in the Syrian civil war, around 2,000 Chechen mujahideen joined the ranks of the Free Syrian Army. Their combat experience significantly aided the Syrian opposition, as the 1990s Russian army was quite similar to the Assad forces in doctrine and equipment. Russian Chechen War veterans also joined the Wagner Group, fighting alongside the Syrian army and getting extensive urban combat experience. This experience later proved invaluable as Wagner fighters stormed the fortified cities of Popasna, Soledar, Bakhmut, and Avdiivka during the Russo-Ukraine War. Today, I'll specifically examine the Chechen National Army. The video is divided into 6 parts: a geographic overview of Chechnya, a brief summary of the First Chechen War, the Chechen Teip clan system, Chechen force structure, homemade equipment, Chechen tactics used between 1994 and 2000 in various types of terrain. This video includes timestamps allowing you to skip any section you're not interested in. Let's begin. Chechnya's geography is divided into 3 main areas. The northern region consists of flat plains, perfect for mechanized warfare, favoring the Russian forces. In the south, the Caucasus Mountains act as a natural barrier. Rivers cut the southern region into thin strips of land, severely limiting vehicle mobility. Towns are strategically located at the entrances of valleys, protecting their flanks and forcing attackers to conduct costly frontal assaults. This terrain is reminiscent of Switzerland during World War II, where similar mountainous geography deterred German invasion due to well-defended narrow valleys. Finally, at the center of Chechnya lies the metropolitan area of Grozny, the capital. This is where the fiercest fighting of the war took place. Between summer 1994 and November 1994, a civil war raged between 2 groups in Chechnya: the Chechen Republic of Ichkeria led by Dudayev, which sought independence, and the Russian-supported anti-Dudayev coalition. In October 1994, the Russian government supplied the opposition with weapons and armored vehicles. On November 26, 1994, the opposition launched an offensive towards the capital, Grozny, with over 1,200 men, 40 tanks, and 10 BTR-80s. It ended in complete failure, with the opposition forces annihilated, suffering massive casualties, half of their armor destroyed, and the other half captured by Chechen forces. On November 29th, Yeltsin declared war. On December 1st, he began an air campaign which destroyed the entire Chechen Air Force, which was sitting in airfields. He also targeted critical command and supply areas. Structurally, Chechen forces comprised of the regular army and local militias. On November 29th, each Chechen settlement mobilized and created a small militia, a factor not accounted for by Russian forces. On December 11th, Russian forces invaded from the north, east, and west with 3 groups with 24,000 soldiers, 80 tanks, and 208 APCs and IFVs, as was a large amount of artillery, mortars, and air support. With all of this force, they expected to reach the capital Grozny in 3 days. However, due to heavy resistance from the local militia groups, it took them 2 weeks, which gave enough time for the Chechen National Army to fortify Grozny. Once they reached it, the capital was captured after 2 months of heavy fighting, at a heavy cost to Russian forces in men and equipment. One might wonder, how did local untrained militias formed in 12 days, lacking anti-tank weaponry, manage to delay the Russian army for 2 weeks? The answer lies in the Teip clan system, the backbone of Chechen society. They are tribal clans based on extended family networks, generating loyalty and trust among Teip members. Chechens value sacrifice for the benefit of their Teip, bravery in daily life, and personal honor. Thus, crime within Teips are rare. Each Teip had a Kel, or Elder Council, which managed all activities, functioning as both legislative and judiciary branches. They elected the Kamshamka, or clan leader, based on merit. He managed civil affairs and represented the clan, sort of like a president and foreign minister put together. Finally, they elected a Baeshi, or military leader based on military skills and valor. He independently managed the clan's military matters and organization. They were often past non-commissioned officers with combat experience within the Soviet army in Afghanistan. This gave them insider knowledge of Russian forces. In addition, older Chechen men had done 3 years of military service in the Soviet army, thus knew how to use various weapons and basic tactics. This meant that each village had a pre-existing defense structure and a pool of trained manpower, allowing for the near instantaneous creation of fighting units with high morale and cohesion. In contrast, while Russian forces had superior numbers and equipment, they were plagued by low morale and corruption following the collapse of the USSR. I read a memoir from a Russian conscript in the Chechen Wars. He had extremely poor training, gangs were formed within units, and they would force other conscripts to pay for protection, else they would beat them. Because of this, desertion and the selling of military equipment became big issues. A document found in the year 2000 explains the special structures of the Chechen militias. Each Teip was tasked with raising one detachment to protect their settlement. The detachments were composed of units called Jamat, each consisting of 15 fighters. 4 to 5 Jamat will form a detachment of 60 to 75 men. With about 150 Teips in Chechnya, the system could generate over 9,000 fighters in a few days. Within a few months, more detachments could be made, increasing the number to 40,000 or more. For the conventional Chechen ground forces, they had 1,500 men in combat-ready units, and 14,000 were in units not fully formed. Here's the list of all the units. You can pause and read it if you wish. Here's the list of all the capture equipment they had. Note that for anti-tank weapons, they may have more, especially RPGs. Their battalions are the following structure: 2 companies, 2 platoons per companies, 3 squads per platoon. This is different from the Warsaw Pact structure of 3-3-3. Sources corroborate this as battalions at less than 200 men. Initially, at the start of the war, particularly the first few weeks, the Chechens had plenty of weapons and equipment. However, the more the war progressed, they began to run out of anti-tank weapons. As such, they developed the Shaitan rocket launcher, which was a repurposed Russian S-5 or S-8 air-to-ground rocket. And they also repurposed the launch tube for downed helicopters. These were effective up to 3 to 4 kilometers, but were quite dangerous for the operators due to the large backblast. And if the fins of the rocket were damaged, it would become a danger for everyone. It also extensively employed mines and improvised explosive devices, or IEDs, especially after switching to guerrilla warfare by May 2000. Early IEDs were often made from 152 artillery rounds or 82mm mortar rounds. IED teams typically consisted of 5 members, including the cameramen, to record ambushes. Time for tactics. In urban combat, Chechen fighters employed several effective tactics. Each team dug multiple foxholes, allowing them to frequently switch positions. This reduced their vulnerability to Russian artillery. They used dugouts, bunkers, and zigzag trenches for protection against shrapnel. Units move independently with each detachment or battalion providing its own flank protection. This led to good coordination within individual units, but poor coordination between different units. Despite these challenges, the decentralized approach had benefits, as demonstrated in the 1995 Battle of Bakhmut, not to be confused with Bakhmut. Chechen defenses consisted of 2 defensive lines on the right and left flanks. The Russians began with a diversionary company assault on the right, but the Chechens did not take the bait. Afterwards, the main assault began. 2 adjacent commanders on the left flank left their position, creating a noticeable gap. The Russians attempted to exploit this with a platoon of mechanized infantry. Once the Russians passed through, the Chechens reoccupied the trenches, encircling and swiftly eliminating the Russian forces. In another incident on the right flank, all frontal Chechen units abandoned the first defensive line. The Russians immediately pushed to occupy the trenches. However, the Chechens had mined these positions and detonated them, killing the attackers and destroying the positions. They typically only occupied the lower floors of buildings to protect against collapsing debris and shrapnel. Utilizing sewers and underground passages was also common in their urban warfare strategy. Raids were an important tactic for the Chechens, allowing them to disrupt the enemy operations, lower morale, and capture valuable equipment and ammunition. These operations were typically carried out by no more than 1 or 2 Jamats. Careful reconnaissance was conducted to identify enemy weak points and maintain the element of surprise. Sometimes IEDs were used to draw enemy reserve away from the targeted location. The Chechens would then attack and break through the enemy defenses, gather equipment, destroy valuable enemy assets, and quickly withdraw before the arrival of reinforcements. Few men were needed for these operations, as the Chechens would never occupy positions or exploit the breakthrough. An example of such raids occurred in Grozny in January 1995. A Jamaat commander named Musa led the operation. The Chechens controlled the south side of the river and had a command post in the presidential palace. 3 T-72 tanks arrived, with 2 using a movie theater for concealment, and they began to shell the command center. Musa split his group into 2 teams of 8 men. His men also gathered 8 inner car tire tubes. 8 men followed Musa to the river, while another 8 men set up on top of a 5-story building. They floated across the river. They then snuck up to 50 meters of the movie theater. There they fired all of their ammunition at the tanks, destroying one. They then came under fire from Russian infantry. This is when the second team provided suppressive fire from the positions in the building. This allowed Musa and his men to retreat 200 meters to the river and float back across to their positions. Breakout of an encirclement. An important part of Chechen tactics was to break through Russian encirclements, which occurred frequently. They typically followed a specific pattern. First, deception. They would provide false information and bait the enemy away from the desired escape area. Second, night movement. A detachment was split into several individual Jamats, moving with significant distance between one another. They would use trees, ravines, and rivers as concealment. Afterwards, they would all reassemble at a point in front of the enemy defenses. Third, stealth and concentration. The Chechens would attempt to quietly move past the defenders. If they had to use deadly force, all fighters would attack the same position. 4. Dispersion and regrouping. After breakthrough, they would split up again and meet at a predetermined location.
Dünya atsa bir khod qasilah dele ba khamma tsa bir Хохо мершадели, сино шакора дас балезандели, винтоло ницхлолах ялах дели, сино шакора дас балезандели, винтоло ницхлолах ялах дели, ялах 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 дели, ялах 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 дели, ялах 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 дели, винтоло ницхлолах балезандели.
Собрались мы вместе, чтоб повеселиться. Вспомним, как служили, как нам трудно было, как твоя девчонка вдруг тебя забыла. За что мы пьем, да не за праздничным столом, за то, что в жизни не сбылось, за запах девичьих волос, за те места, где небо крыша, за телеграмму замуж вышла, за марш-бросок, глухие стоны и за десантные погоны. Помню, как я прыгал в рампу самолета, как кричал мне прапор, проклиная что-то. Помню, как лежали сутками в болотах. Так давай же выпьем за парней, что в стропах. За что мы пьем, да не за праздничным столом, за то, что в жизни не сбылось, за запах девичьих волос, за те места, где небо крыша, за телеграмму замуж вышла, за марш-бросок, глухие стоны и за десантные